Hi, I'm Walter Hood from Hood Design Studio out here in Oakland, California. It's a pleasure to be here today presenting ideas around the tidal basin. For us today, what we'd like to talk about is landscape as a medium. It's a medium of exchange between humans and the environment, and how we present ourselves to the world and to one another. The basin actually can tell what we think a very powerful story. So we have three basic things we'd like to talk about today. One is developing a prophetic aesthetic, and that is really telling the truth about a place. Secondly, we'd like to embrace the flux, and how do we embrace that flux in our lives, and how do we let that water be free when it needs to be free? And then really thinking about the inventions that have been in place for the last 100 years, when we really think about the pumping and the walls and all of the things that are holding this landscape at bay. Telling this new narrative through a landscape story might allow us to invent and think about the world differently. I'm going to share with you 4 different speculative stories today. And we're going to do this through 4 different novellas. These are fictions, they're purely speculative, and they really try to tie these elements that I talked about earlier together as we experience them. So the first one is the school field trip. This is a class from Williamsburg, and they're really keen on seeing this new invention. It's a pure 360-degree elevated levitated circle. As the kids arrive to the east side, they head off in 2 different directions. The group that heads towards the Jefferson Memorial is able then to immerse themselves in this new wetland experience. The group that heads towards MLK, they descend from this overhead structure down into this wetland landscape. Now King's Monument is engulfed in this tidal marsh. The next novella, The Hush Harbors. It's a family reunion is happening in the city. And they decide this year that they would like to take an African-American tour around Washington, D.C. There's a new tour, one that starts at Arlington Cemetery and takes them forth to Teddy Roosevelt Island, then to Georgetown at the AME Church, then to the new National Museum of African-American History. And as they start thinking about how all of these pieces are connected, it's really a story about how Washington, D.C. was built. They first get to the Cat's Bridge, and they read inscriptions on the bridge that talk about the Native Indians that were once here in the Potomac. They then walk a little longer, and they see paintings of landscapes in which free slaves are actually practicing religion. Along the bottom of the deck is written Hush Harbor.
And they look at one another. What's a hush harbor? The hush harbor was a secluded informal space in the swamps where slaves could escape away from their masters to meet for worship and burial.
As they continue their walk, they notice these large gates. These new gates are actually holding back the Potomac. They also are looking back across to Arlington where they started, and they begin to see the sort of connection between the diaspora that they began from that morning. The next novella is called The Flood. It's a necklace of monuments. Here, the National Park Service, they're really excited about today. No one thought that they could do it, but they basically freed the waters. They cut off FDR, made it an island, built a wall, moved MLK upward, and isolated Jefferson. Here they allowed the Potomac to flow in. There's a new floating wetland, and this floating wetland absorbs the tidal surges as they come in. All tours now will be by boat, and each tour is led by a boat that would take you over to a monument. It's a very different way of seeing this landscape. And the last is the cherry orchard. It's a February day, and it's been unseasonably warm. Cherries have blossomed. People are caught off guard. The cherry blossoms now, they've been moved behind the new surge landscape behind the FDR Memorial that used to be ball fields, and they take up Independence Drive. The South Lane has been vacated, and they've been raised up, and they sit high. And you can actually sit underneath the new cherries and look back across the Potomac.